Hey everyone, and welcome. I am your host, Erin Moody, here on behalf of Orlando Insight Group. Each episode, we dive into real conversations with technology leaders, innovators, and experts who are shaping the future of IT, data, and cybersecurity. Our goal is simple: to give you practical insights, real world strategies, and expert perspectives that you can use to drive smarter decisions and stronger results for your business. Thank you so much for being here. Today, we are having Deborah Webster on the podcast today. She is super interesting. She actually saw the cracks in companies like Theranos, Greensill, and OneCoin long before they collapsed. She is the author of Better Than Your Behavior. She's a fellow at For Humanity and an associate with the AI Procurement Lab. She's helped investors and leaders navigate the intersection of ethics, innovation, and impact. And now she's building something more powerful, which she's going to talk to us about today. It's a platform to help investors identify which AI products will cause harm before they get funded and which ones to back instead. She's about to launch, and today she's going to give us a little bit of a sneak peek, which we are super, super excited about. So thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
Of course. So one thing we kind of touched on in your intro was that you actually saw the red flags with companies like Theranos before they collapsed. So I'm super curious to hear what were you seeing in those companies that others missed, and how has that maybe helped you sharpen your radar today?
Gosh, the Theranos story was petrifying. So there was an investor I had done a lot of work with, and there were some rogues we had already identified, and we have like this red list, and we keep tracking people. And I was building this model, and he called me one time, and he's like, these friends of mine have invested in a company. They've invited me to invest. Could you run it through your model and see what you turn up?
Right.
And I'm really, really honest. You know how people talk about imposter syndrome? I was like, this is my model. It can't be any good. And, the media was all positive and gung-ho about Theranos and Elizabeth Holmes at the time. And
Right.
I ran it through my model, and normally I have access to the founders, and so I can interview them. This was the first time I was doing it through, so I had the deck and I had information that was available online. So it was like a different way of running my model. And I was seeing these red flags, and the red flags were kind of simple and really obvious, but not so obvious, because when the whole world is telling you this is an amazing company, you're kind of like, well, who are you to kind of, say that everyone is wrong? But it's
Right.
like always evasive. There's this pattern of, so I came across a lot of people before who were World Economic Forum Young Global Leaders. And I noticed when people hear that, they assume good enough for them, good enough for us. And it's innocent by association. And what I learned to do was put that aside and just doing really, really good due diligence. And I suppose I have an advantage because I used to be a partner with one of the leading Shreks, so one of the leading executive search firms. And so every single day I used to interview people, and you
Right.
start to see this. You start to see this pattern. So it's that kind of thing, and then it's the dynamics of people, and it's how people answer questions, the intonation. So it's sentiment analysis on steroids, I suppose you could say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, so I have a background in recruiting too. So when you talk to hundreds and getting up into thousands of people, you do start to pick up on, the kind of the BS meter, I guess you could say.
Exactly.
And then like what you were saying, you have to trust those instincts and don't rely on, that kind of confirmation from other people. Like look at the
Well,
facts and trust what you're finding.
so it's funny. So when I was building the model, I asked a lot of investors, especially like in the earlier stage. So how do you know? Because they would always say, well, it depends if I like the founder. It's like, well, what exactly are you looking for?
Right.
Because
Right.
it's all nebulous, and they didn't actually have any specific data points. And I found a major hack that a lot of them are experiencing. So if they liked the founder, they would typically do due diligence to prove their gut's right. And that's confirmation bias. So as a
Right.
system, you need to do is you need to put that aside and you need to do your due diligence to prove yourself wrong, which is quite hard for most people who have like a pretty healthy ego, right? So
Yes.
yeah, these funny little quirks and asking really basic, simple questions. So there's this one co-founder, again, all over the press, and it's extraordinary how people are really hacked by what they read in the media.
Right.
And I was looking at his at their due diligence questionnaire, and there was a referee on there. That is the person is a household name, and I just asked him a simple question: does this person know he's in your DDQ? And his answer, it's a pretty binary question, right? Yes or
Yeah.
no.
Right.
And he's like,
Yeah.
it will be fine. Okay, well, that's not a yes, which means it's a no, and it's actually an orange flag because you were deflecting.
Right.
And
Right.
so I then had to ask a basic question. It's like, well, how does he actually know you? Is he in a position to speak to your character and your worth, and if you can deliver on this? And anyway, the two are not linked, and he was one of the ones who were tracking. It took 7 years for something to blow up, and but yeah, it's
So interesting.
well, it's heartbreaking, because there's some really brilliant founders out there that may not have, another hack is people tend to gravitate more towards extroverts instead of introverts. And if someone gives a really clean, slick presentation, they kind of manage to kind of wheedle themselves into someone's brain. But for me, it's actually how people answer questions, because it shows the depth of their understanding of something. So I was doing due diligence for some investors on blockchain technology. And the number of CEOs I asked, what protocol are you using? And the majority of them said, oh, I don't know, my tech guy knows. And the problem with this is it does raise the question. It does raise the question of what other major decisions are being made in your company that you're not aware of. And as a CEO, the buck stops here. You should actually know everything, right? Or at least know the logic behind the decisions.
Yeah, at least you can't know every little detail of everything. You trust people like the CTO to put their expertise in. But like you said, you still need to know high level, why are we doing it this way, and the details that are going into it. So very interesting. I can tell you have a super cool job, like looking into all that kind of stuff, and helping investors not be part of that whole blow up with companies like Theranos. That is obviously a very good lever for them to have going in. So I kind of wanted to jump in on something that I've seen you say when I was doing some research, and that was that ethics shouldn't be an afterthought. It should be a strategic edge, which I love. When you kind of said that, and when you have that thought, why do you think that it's a risk for industries to think of ethics as more of an afterthought than the forefront of what they should be thinking about?
It says so much about the state of the world that we even have that as a question. Are we just mad, right?
Yeah.
So people are always surprised when I say I don't like social entrepreneurs. So don't get me wrong, what they're doing is very, very noble. But having this subset subconsciously gives permission to regular entrepreneurs to cause harm. Now, if it's not, so let's just look at, for instance, pollution. And let's just say there's no regulation for it, as a thought experiment. Just because there's no regulation for it and it's not on your balance sheet, it doesn't mean that it's not on someone else's balance sheet. So for instance, we look at the UK, if you are putting pollutants into the air or into the water, yes, you're cost cutting on your side, but then it's going to it's going to increase the number of health cases. And so it's going to end up on the balance sheet of the NHS, and therefore the taxpayer. So it's, I personally think that so this is kind of actually what the book was about. So when I was growing up, my mum used to say to me, when I criticize you, it's not you I criticize, but your behavior, because you're better than your behavior. So when it comes to the tech space, and especially the AI space, I always think about, for me, it's the difference between people and our behavior and humanity and our potential. And this matters when it comes to data and algorithms, because they're trained on our behavior, but they're not actually, but are they actually primed to help us be better versions of ourselves? And I think that space is so fascinating. And that in itself is also like a whole kind of minefield of ethical choice, of instances of ethical choice, because the individual must always be in the seat of their decisions. But anyway, I'll go into detail on that if you wish. But it's one of
yeah, I love it. I love where you're going with that. So please continue.
So when I was first introduced to LLMs, it was before ChatGPT came out. It was the founder of a company I invested in ages ago, and he called me and he's like, "Deb," he said, "I've been experimenting with something. I'm going to send you the login details. Play with it. Tell me what you think." And this thing blew me away. So I was writing a book at the time, and it was about how humans stay relevant in a technology-obsessed world. And the narrative is very much kind of about, like, the narrative we have in the world is very much about fear-mongering, about how tech will, take away jobs for people, et cetera, and how we have this AI race. And there's these false narratives that are, I don't know, they're kind of doom and gloom. Or else on the other side, we have this magical thinking, it will be magical, it will be amazing, and the world will be a better place. Well, really? Because every single decision we make today kind of sets the next stone, and I very much believe in intentionality and impact. So I've lost my train of thought. Oh my God, my brain. So when my God, sorry, I have like this whole web of thoughts as to where we're going. So the thing about, so you've got this magical thinking on the one hand, this fear mongering on the other. And I woke up at 4 o'clock one morning playing with this LLM, and I asked it, "You're Socrates, and if you've returned to Earth, what is your view of humanity?" What it came up with was mind blowing. And I thought to myself, well, maybe one potential future and one potential path is that AI could be kinder to humans than humans are to humans. And when you think about the world we live in and we look around us, it's not a very high bar, right? But if that's the case, well, how do we make that a reality? So when we look at a lot of the AI being deployed today, or a lot of the use cases being discussed, what confuses me is that a lot of companies are deploying it in current business modus operandi, right? Business as usual.
Right.
But this is short-term thinking, because what they're doing is they're concretizing many systems that are already broken. So we're actually enhancing the harms that we're causing. But what we should be doing instead is reimagining the future, reimagining our business, for instance. Okay, so what did we want to do that we couldn't do before because it cost too much, or we didn't have enough resources, et cetera, that AI could help us do that? What does that look like? Reverse engineer it and then start looking at those particular use cases. But we also need to start looking at what it means for, so let's just say, for instance, you're deploying AI and it is going to save, for instance, X millions of dollars or hundreds, whatever. A percentage of that should be allocated to retraining, reskilling. There needs to be a plan. We can't, and this talking about what can happen is not good enough. We need to follow through with our actions. And a very odd kind of parallel that I draw for people sometimes is when you look back in Roman times, the Romans were extremely focused as to, for instance, where they wanted water to be. And water was here, but they wanted it to be there. And so they created aqueducts in order to get it from here to there. And I believe we need a similar train of thought when it comes to how we're deploying AI and what future we want to see. We don't really have a race because everyone is scattered all over the place, going in multiple different directions. if we truly had a race, we'd all have agreed on the direction and we're all racing towards that shared direction. But we do not have a shared direction, I don't think, as of yet. And then we have all this noise around regulation. And the fact of the matter is that regulation is always behind the curve. But and there's this false narrative that's being pushed out by people who have vested interests, who are saying that it stymies innovation, and it doesn't. And if we look at the automotive industry, for instance, regulation did not stymie innovation at all. In fact, some car companies took that as it gave them an edge. So they invested a lot more in material science and safety engineering, etc. But what we're currently doing are current practices by some of the major AI companies out there. It's akin to a car manufacturer releasing cars with no safety checks, no brakes, and no seat belts. And instead of using dummies as crash testing, they're actually testing on live human beings. It's reckless, it's irresponsible, and massively unethical.
Yeah, you brought up some really interesting things that I haven't even really thought about. But yeah, like the parallels between, just the safety with the car industry. And, you do hear that narrative, I think, from people at the top who are the most invested. They don't want the guardrails on. They just want to be able to do, whatever they want. And I definitely feel like there should be some things put into place. But as you also said, it's kind of just all over the place. So it's going to be a massive undertaking, but one that I think hopefully has already been started. But we definitely need it going along with the pace of everything that's coming out, because things are changing like crazy. So yeah, we definitely don't want it going in the wrong direction. And I love your focus on like the innovation. Like, let's use it to help our society, not tank it or just try to find the ways to make the most money that corporations can possibly make. But very cool. So kind of piggybacking off of all of that, you have drawn a lot of clear parallels between kind of the hype around AI and some high-profile failures of the past. So are there any patterns you're seeing and kind of with all of your experience in kind of identifying those orange and red flags? Anything that's kind of giving you pause that you haven't already touched on?
So there are certain companies, I don't need to mention, people watching this are massively intelligent, and the writing is right in front of us. Unfortunately, we are running on default thinking and default systems. So I have a few favorite books, and one I always come back to is The Age of Surveillance Capitalism by Shoshana Zuboff, because it is the appalling, disgusting way big tech companies have amassed huge amounts of data on regular citizens. And I think one of the greatest risks in the AI space, well, there's actually two, right? One is that there would be a huge blow up, breaking trust in the technology entirely. And so then we go into an AI winter. That's one. If we don't start operating more judiciously, more wisely, and more ethically. The second one, which I think is actually more scary, is a death by 1,000 cuts, where people the analogy is the frog that's put in cold water and boiled gently, where because tools are so convenient and because people can't actually disconnect from them. So for instance, something simple you mentioned used to be in recruiting. If you look at the amount of recruiting tools out there where people actually don't have a choice, really, of whether to be profiled by them or not. And there's another phenomenal book on this subject, which I highly recommend to everyone, called The Algorithm. Because whilst there's all this noise about people losing their jobs, if people knew the technology that's being deployed upon people, both to get jobs and also once people are in companies, they wouldn't want to work with these companies. So since we've touched upon this, I want to bring a situation to people's awareness. There's an asymmetric relationship, power dynamic between employers and employees and candidates, right? And what we're doing is we're deploying technology in that landscape, enhancing that asymmetry. So for instance, you have some recruiting tools where this piece of tech analyzes, gives insights to the interviewer, right? If we're truly using this technology to level the playing field, the candidate should actually also be given insights on the person that's interviewing them and the company and whether they're a good fit for them. Because it would enable people to be wiser on where they invest their time and talent. And that would be an amazing kind of...
Yeah, that would be incredible.
Exactly. But this is the thing, like, so when you look at the supply chain of these tools, you have the developers, you have the investors, you have the companies and the individuals buying the tools, and then you have the individuals using it. So I tend to look at that entire supply chain. So a lot of the work with For Humanity, for instance, has codified a lot of the regulations around the world and is training auditors on how to identify and make sure that all the tools are trusted and trustworthy and make sense for humanity. One of the things I love about Ryan, the founder, and all the volunteers, the volunteers are from every single corner of the planet. So we have diverse inputs and multi-stakeholder engagement, which is massively important to build responsible tools. And then from the procurement side, I do work with Dr. Carrie Miller, who is absolutely phenomenal. And her and a few other colleagues have created this program to upgrade the level of awareness of people buying this technology, because people don't know what questions to ask before they buy this technology. And so you often see like a default kind of thinking of, well, so-and-so is using it, and so it's fine. Or, it's so-and-so has invested in it, so it's got to be good. But there are some
going back to the same thing you were talking about before. It's like people just want to know who's doing it. Okay, they've got it. I don't have to think about it. I'll just do it too.
There's this title that we say, like, leaders and leadership. Unfortunately, a lot of our behavior is not leadership-like. I think it's more sheep-like. And we need more leaders. Sorry to be a cheeky monkey, but hey, I say it as it is.
All right, perfect. So we've got a few more minutes left. I'd love for you to take that time to talk to us a little bit about your new launch. So we're going to be launching something new that makes your pattern recognition system available at scale. So without giving too much away, could you tell us a little bit about what you're building and what kind of change you hope it will drive?
So thanks for that. Yeah, so I have racked my brain about this for a really, really, really long time. And it's kind of how I got into ethical AI in the first place. But I've identified certain people in the marketplace who have some phenomenal tools that fit very well with the model I have in pattern recognition. So I talk a lot about people's inner algorithm. I don't believe that people should subcontract their decision-making to tools. I believe we first need to upgrade our awareness and then use the tools to enhance our thinking and enhance kind of our decision-making, but not to subcontract our decision-making. So what I'm launching is developing investors' awareness as to what questions to ask, having a structure, an ethical kind of guidebook for them, instead of just looking at the financials, looking at the human dimension. So the risk from the founder's perspective, the team dynamics, particular inflection points. We've mapped out this whole kind of thing, and then we've got tools as well as human insight to enable investors to make wiser and more ethical decisions and stop burning cash, right? Because the opportunity cost is just off the charts. There's too many great founders being eclipsed by noisy ones. And we need that good technology to come to the foreground. I mean, there's a lot more thinking behind it, in which once I'll tag you, and then I'm happy to divulge more. But yeah,
definitely keep me in the loop, and we can obviously share it with our audience as well, and get that information out there. It sounds awesome. Like you said, it's not just, everything's not about the financials. We also have to think about the whole picture. So helping them with those questions is super helpful.
On that point, though, there's one thing I'd really love investors to stop saying and thinking. And I've had the privilege of working with some phenomenal investment bankers in this world. One of them keeps telling me, like, please, Deb, keep reminding people that integrity, ethics, and profits are not at odds with each other. They are part of the same equation. And there's many, many, many amazing examples of that in this world. So, yeah.
Yes, I love it. No, that's very important to put out there. They don't have to be at odds with each other, and put it all together, and you're probably going to have the best of both worlds. All right, great. And then on a lighter note, just to end it, your puppy dog, Fraggle, often makes appearances on Zoom with you. What has she taught you about leadership, or just being a human in our crazy world right now?
You know, I love Fraggle. So she's called Fraggle because she rocks.
Love it.
So first of all, we're responsible. I mean, I don't own her. I'm responsible for her. She's only as good as the training I've instilled in her. And if she misbehaves, it's actually on me, because I've created the circumstances for her to misbehave.
Right.
But above all else, I mean, she has this amazing curiosity. The fact that, I think she should give financial advice to humans, because she has, an amazing house, a cook, a driver, God knows what else. But no, above all else, she makes me laugh, and she makes me a better human. Yeah. But it's funny, there's a lot of parallels between responsibility of a dog and responsibility of AI. So we would create AI, it's out there in the world, we give it guardrails, but ultimately if it goes off the rails, whoever has designed it and developed it and deployed it is responsible. Same thing with the dog.
Very true. Yeah, very, very true. Perfect. Well, thank you so much for taking the time out and talking to me and our audience. Lots of really, really interesting nuggets throughout. So for people that want to follow you and stay up to date on what you're doing and your upcoming product launch, where's the best place for them to find you?
LinkedIn is LinkedIn is definitely the best place to find me. I'm not putting the name of the website out there yet either.
Okay.
But if people look, it's a very complex subject to unpack. So if people do have questions, super happy for them to send me messages or post them actually in your comments underneath underneath this. And even if you wanted to organize a Q&A with people, if you've got interest, whatever people need to navigate this space in a hopeful, positive, grounded way, I'm happy to do that.
Awesome. Yes, I feel like we'll be taking you up on the Q&A for sure. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, guys, that is it for today. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. If you enjoyed today's conversation and you want to hear more ideas and hear from more people like Deborah, make sure you follow our company page at Orlando Insight Group. We are trying to do interviews like these about once a week or so. As Deborah kind of highlighted there, we do like to have people come back. I think this is a super interesting topic that a lot of people would like to hear more about. So we'll definitely keep you posted on when we can schedule that Q&A. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Deborah. And make sure you guys go follow her LinkedIn page. It is connected on the invite for today. And we'll be tagging her in some clips throughout the next week or so as well.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.